Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we're going to look at something truly fascinating. It's a high school career connection simulation developed by the Chalk and Ledger Group, and it's simply called the Inbox. If you've ever found yourself wondering how on earth to teach real-world resilience, time management, and critical thinking without just, handing out a boring worksheet that immediately gets stuffed into a locker, well, you are absolutely going to love this. So let's dive right into this with a pretty direct question. How do you actually teach high schoolers to navigate workplace chaos? Because let's be honest, traditional lectures, they fail miserably at teaching soft skills like reliability, discipline, or even productive failure. You really can't just tell a student, hey, be disciplined under pressure. No way. They have to actually experience that pressure. They have to make the absolute wrong call and feel the very real consequences of it. And you know what? That is exactly what the Inbox is built to do. So the crucial point is this core mantra of the entire simulation. The loudest item in the inbox is rarely the most important one. Throughout this explainer, we're going to unpack this brilliant, ongoing battle between what feels urgent right now and what is actually important. We'll see exactly how this simulation forces students to confront that very tension head-on. Okay, here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with Welcome to the Inbox, then look at the math in the triage scarcity engine, explore 3 paths through chaos, reveal the hidden psychological traps, and finally wrap up with the Day 11 reveal. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Welcome to the Inbox and the structure of this 12-period simulation. The setup here is just brilliant in its realism. The student actually steps into the role of the brand new office coordinator at a mid-sized professional services firm called Whitfield and Associates. The whole thing runs from day 0, which is their orientation, straight through to day 11. The catch? They inherit a completely messy, overcapacity desk from a predecessor who basically just quit without any sort of handoff. So every single day, they have to triage this absolute nightmare of an inbox, and they only have 4 distinct costed actions to do it: act now, schedule, delegate, or defer. It is definitely not a multiple choice test. It's a very genuine, very stressful operational challenge. Which brings us nicely to the engine that actually runs the whole thing. Section 2, the triage scarcity engine and the math behind the madness. Now, what's really interesting about this setup is the genuine, inescapable trade-off happening behind the scenes. On one side, the student gets a daily focus budget, basically a strictly limited number of time blocks. On the other side is the total inbox demand. And the absolute genius here is that the daily budget is mathematically always set below the total demand of the inbox. You literally cannot get everything done. It's impossible. You have to give something up every single day. Because ignoring the wrong thing, well, it has serious mathematical consequences. The simulation uses this concept of compounding decay. Take a really quiet, easily deferrable task, like getting a building access card for an employee named Miss Reyes. On day 1, it costs exactly 1 focus block. That's just 15 minutes of work. But if a student defers it simply because it isn't loud enough, by day 6, it gets hit with a 4 times multiplier. That completely quiet 15-minute task has now blown up into a massive 90-minute crisis, and suddenly their boss, Sam, and an external audit firm are involved. And the crazy part is, students can't just hide from their choices. Everything is tracked by a live dashboard. As they make these tough decisions, 4 specific counters automatically update: deliverables protected, crises created, trust balance, and budget discipline. The system is literally mathematically grading their choices, keeping the focus purely on the hard data, rather than just letting them claim they felt super productive that day. Now, let's explore how students typically react to all this pressure in Section 3, 3 paths through chaos, and why the boring choice is fundamentally designed to win. These numbers brilliantly illustrate the reality of different strategies. Take the firefighter path, for example. This is the student who reacts to every single loud email and immediately tackles the immediate noise. Well, they actually score the highest early on. They get 8 items done in the first few days and feel incredibly productive. But look at their final week score. They finished dead last at 81.1. Why? Because they created 4 massive compounding crises. On the flip side, the methodical student who systematically protects core deliverables and handles those quiet things early, well, they might feel a lot slower at first, but they absolutely crushed the week with a score of 289.8. The simulation mathematically rewards methodical, boring work over reactive panic. But hey, it's not just about playing it completely safe all the time. On day 6 and day 8, the students hit what are called strategy windows. During these windows, non-methodical moves are totally allowed, but only if they submit them as a calculated risk. To get any credit at all, They have to write a falsification statement predicting exactly what evidence would prove their risky move was wrong. If they just make a bold move without doing that falsification, the system flat out greets it as a reckless move. It's such a fantastic way to teach them that clear reasoning matters way more than just guessing right. Moving right along to Section 4, the hidden psychological traps, cognitive biases in the workplace. So behind the scenes, there are actually 10 cognitive patterns secretly running this whole simulation. For example, what the students come to call the loud versus quiet item is actually a well-known bias called the mere urgency effect. And crucially, the actual research names of these biases are totally withheld from the students until the very end. This stops them from just memorizing a textbook. They have to literally live the biases first. This is exactly how that quiet, absolutely critical Reyes access card gets fatally pushed aside on day 2 in favor of a loud, all caps, but completely useless company newsletter. The students fall for the flashy formatting rather than the actual substance. Then there's the planning fallacy, or what the simulation cleverly calls over-promising the day. There's this brilliant little progression from day 1 to day 4. On day 1, students estimate that clearing their inbox will take them about 30 minutes. Easy, right? Well, on day 4, the teacher runs a show of hands to physically prove the massive gap between how confident they feel and what their tracking dashboard actually proves. The harsh reality? That inbox takes 55 minutes. The gap between their gut feeling and the hard data is exposed live, right there in the room. Another huge trap is the Zeigarnik effect, often called the open loop. This one hits incredibly hard on day 6. That Reyes access card crisis balloons into a disastrous 90-minute black hole, while at the exact same time, their boss Sam's tough feedback from day 5 is still echoing in their head. 2 very recent unfinished loops are pulling heavily on their limited focus, basically splitting their attention right when they need it the absolute most. Oh, and we definitely cannot forget the affect heuristic, which is perfectly driven by a character named Dana. Honestly, we've all worked with a Dana. She constantly sends passive-aggressive emails. She is the ultimate anchor for gut feel dictating priority. Because her emails carry such a heavy negative emotional charge, students get baited into spending 45 focus-draining minutes doing a super low-stakes archiving favor for her. Why? Just to avoid negative feelings and get her off their back. They literally prioritize their own emotional comfort over the firm's core deliverables. Which brings us to the finale, Section 5, the Day 11 reveal, the curtain drops. Okay, so the frantic daily triage finally stops, and the narrative arc here becomes truly spectacular. Way back on day 0, before anything even started, students wrote down what they predicted would be their absolute biggest mistake, and they physically sealed it in an envelope. Well, on day 11, they finally open that envelope. They read their own overly confident predictions, they finally learn the real psychological names for the exact traps they just fell into, and they realize the massive, undeniable gap between what they thought they would do and what the data shows they actually did. And to close the whole thing out, students don't just walk away. They must write a highly rigorous 24-point workplace philosophy statement. They absolutely can't just write fluff here. They have to explicitly acknowledge the harshest critiques of their specific path. For instance, if they were the methodical player, they must answer the charge that they acted as a bottleneck. They have to defend their choices using exact tracker data. They must name the silent third-party stakeholders who were impacted by their delays, like that audit firm or their blocked colleagues, and they even have to connect their decision-making to the real-world operational policies of actual companies, like Zappos, Stripe, or Patagonia. Which leaves us with a truly compelling thought to end on today. Think about your own workplace capacities, your own daily trade-offs. If a live scoreboard tracked your every single move this week, and you actually had to defend your inbox habits with hard, mathematical data rather than just talking about how busy you felt, what would your data reveal? Are you methodical? Are you a delegator? Or are you, maybe, just a firefighter quickly burning out? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and honestly, I hope this totally changes how you look at your very next loud email.